want you, the reason I show that video today is this. I want you to see a father's heart. That was his dad. His dad worked with him every single day to get him to the Olympics. And everything was finely tuned, and everything was great. But just like everything out there, something went wrong. He pulled up hamstringers. I don't even know what that muscle was he was holding. And his dad saw his determination. Now, let me just let you in on a little secret. What he did is illegal. You're not allowed, a spectator is not allowed on the playing field. That's why all those guys were having a hard time with it. They didn't know what to do with it. And what you didn't see in that video is that he pushed his way through multiple security guards to get out on the field in the first place. And then he's like, get away from me. This is my boy. This is my boy. We started this thing together. We're going to finish it together. And that's the heart of a father. The fact of the matter is, folks, that we live in a world where things are often uncertain. You could be the most finely tuned Christian athlete in the world, and this sinful world is going to rub up against you sometimes, and it's going to cause you to have a problem. We live in a sinful world. We're born into it. But the heart of our Father is to come, and He came from eternity. That song, All Hail King Jesus, that song tells the whole thing. He went through the distance. He was there when you began, and He'll be there when you finish. Do not be weary in well-doing, for in due season you will reap if you don't lose heart. Now, Derek could have laid down and they would have gotten a stretcher for him and he would have been hauled back. But his determination called his father out of the stands. And if I can kind of maybe fictionalize this a little bit, but I kind of know what the father's heart is, this father knew because they had spent hours together on the field. He had invested in this boy from time. You don't get to the Olympics by thinking about it when you're 21. I think I'm going to go to the Olympics today. I think I'm going to do that. That sounds like a fun thing. Hey, Dad, let's put that Twinkie down. Let's go running. No, you're doing this from a very young age. And I could hear his father saying, time and time again, when it got hard, don't quit. Don't you quit on me, boy. Get going. Dad, I'm tired. My legs hurt. I don't care. Move. We're doing this. We're doing this together. Come on. I could see him running next to him. Let's go. Let's go. You can do this. You can be the best version of you. Come on. Let's go. Because I know I've coached many, many years. And Lincoln, you better get ready, boy. Because I'm your coach this season. And that's what a good coach does. That's what a father does. This could have been a Father's Day sermon. Here's the deal, guys. God loves you. He knows you hurt, and He will break through whatever it needs to break through to come to your side. But you can't give up. You can't give up. Today we're going to talk about two miracles where you see the heart of a father towards people that He loves. The big idea of this message is, throughout the gospel, Jesus displays His divine power over sickness and disease in order to demonstrate that He's indeed the Messiah, the Son of God, who comes to set His people free from oppression. The enemy came to kill, steal, and destroy. But the Father came out of the stands, defying all odds, so you may have life and have it abundantly. Here we go. Mark chapter 5. Turn there if you can. Flip there with your phone, whatever you need, whatever you got. Mark chapter 5, verse 21. And this particular verse takes place directly after what we talked about last week. Remember the people said, please go away. We don't want you here. We just lost thousands of pigs. We don't want you here. You make us nervous. We want nothing to do with this Jewish Messiah. This is nuts. So he did. He obeyed. You know what's funny thing about that? If you push Jesus away, he's not going to push himself on you. He'll just go somewhere else and invest in somebody else who's open. We're going to see somebody who's open here. Ready? So he goes across the lake, and he gets off, and this is where we start here. Verse 21. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea, because that's where you have to be when you get out of a boat. Makes sense. Okay, here we go. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogues, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, my little daughter, hear the heart of a father on this one, folks? My little daughter, she's sick. She's at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live. Oh, I like that. And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman. Okay, stop. I tricked you. We're actually not going to talk about Jairus today. We'll talk about him next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Today, we're going to focus on the next story. Jesus is such a miracle-working God, it's hard to, he just, wherever he goes, miracles are happening, right? It's hard to know what to talk about. Here we go. The great crowd was thronging, and there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather she grew worse. And she heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if I touch even his garment, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus perceived in himself that power had gone out of him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, who touched my garment? He could even tell that it was like his garment that got touched. So a lot of people have had, silly discussions about this story. Like, how did he know? Is healing fatiguing? When healing power goes out of Jesus, is it something that's fatiguing to him? What was it, the sense that he got? I don't know. Is that really important? I don't know. I don't really think it is. Can we focus on what's important here? That the heart of Jesus is to heal and to restore and to keep people from feeling the effects of the enemy on their lives. Breaking the bondage of sin that is around us and in us and all of these things. That's his heart. And he can do it without even having to do it on purpose. Just being around Jesus will make you more whole. Turn quickly to don't turn it, just stay right there, but in your minds, go to the story about Mary and Martha. You know, there's a lot of people in churches that are around Jesus, but never take the time to sit at his feet. In order to receive from Jesus, you have to press in. You've got to get close. You've got to reach out and touch him. I'm telling you, you could be a part of a church for your whole life, and you could be squeaky clean, quote unquote, and never have experienced the power of God. I believe many Christians real, going to heaven, the lid's put on hell type of Christians, still keep Jesus at a distance so as they don't experience the miraculous. When we press in, we should start anticipating Jesus to do what Jesus always did. And that is to free us from the bondage that the world has around us. I was talking to somebody yesterday. I said, man, the story about the demoniac is always a tough one to preach. Because some people, you start talking about things like that, they lump you in as a pastor with, cult leaders and stuff like that. But I just want to talk real quick about this series. It's about miracles. Miracles is the suspension of the natural, or else it's not a miracle. You take the miracles away from the person of Jesus, and we're all in very big trouble. Because salvation is an absolute miracle. Resurrection is an absolute miracle. If you strip Jesus of the miracles and the supernatural, then he's just a really nice guy who said some really interesting things. But if we believe that Jesus is who he said, and listen, you can't say, well, Jesus was just a nice guy who said some nice things, because he said he was the Son of God. And you've heard this before. If he's not, then he's either a lunatic or a liar. You can't say he's a nice guy because he just lied to a huge population of people. He is who he said he is, or he's not. And that's where faith comes in. You can't sanitize Jesus from the miracles. If you do, then there's no potency to who he is for us today. So we have to understand this, that the miracles are vitally important. The fact that he has power over the darkness, over demons, over sickness, over death, everything that comes against you and me, the fact that he has that power should thrill us to our core, because otherwise we are just fodder for the enemy. We are targets to be shot at, and there's nothing that can stop it. But when Jesus enters the picture, the Jesus who he said he is and who I believe by the word of God that he is, the gates of hell cannot prevail against us. So we should embrace the miracles. We should embrace the supernatural in that realm, that Jesus is more powerful than the enemy that comes against your soul. All right, that's a way out in right field. Here we go. Where were we? All right. Okay, who touched my garment? All right. Here we go. And the disciples were kind of didn't understand what he was talking about either. He says, who touched my garment? And the disciples said to him, you could see the crowd pressing around you, yet you say, who touched my garment? Who touched me? I can just picture Jesus like, shut up. I know what I'm talking about. And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing that what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, this is one of the main reasons why I showed that video this morning, because look at what he calls her. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. This is the heart of a father, folks. This is the heart of God. This is the one who loves you, who made you, who imprinted his image on you. You are valuable to God. Do not let the world tell you that you are not valuable. This woman had endured years and years of being ostracized. How do I know this? Because the Old Testament law says she can't even touch anybody. She was devoid of human affection. Because under the Jewish law, if you touched a woman who had an issue like this, with open bleeding or whatever it was, you were made unclean. So she was basically like the same as what a leper would be in that society. So she was been told, you can't be here. You're not good enough. And when we get to the next, get to the next miracle, you're going to see what the society was saying on top of this. You must have done something wrong. This is a judgment of God. Ostracized. She was so fearful to touch Jesus because the fear is if she touches Jesus, it makes him unclean, right? We talked about this a couple of days ago, a few weeks ago. But the fact of the matter is, whatever Jesus touches becomes clean. You can't make the Son of God unclean. That should be a lesson to us, folks. Whatever you got going on, whatever the baggage you bring, you can't make Jesus unclean. He's not shocked by you. He's not offended by you. He's not weirded out by you. Because whatever touches Jesus, when we press him, we touch the feet, we become clean and he's okay. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Pause for the second. One of the things we do in churches that is misguided is we love to talk about faith as if faith has a face. If you're putting your faith in faith, good luck with that. Her faith didn't heal her because she just believed in something, or she had enough. She couldn't make this happen in herself. She had faith in a person who had a face. His name is Jesus. So we talk about this faith movement in our churches, and I think it's a bunch of garbage, actually, because building faith in faith alone is pointless. This self-help garbage that we all do. We've been fed to us for years and years. That's garbage. What we need to do is we need to press in through all the obstacles that are against us. She had to go. Jesus was in the center of a crowd. She's not supposed to touch anybody. She had to figure out how to get to Jesus amidst all the obstacles, and she did it because she had singularly focused on the person of Jesus Christ. Her faith made her whole because her faith was in Jesus, not just in faith. We need to be careful when teachers teach stuff that is not founded in this. Amen. If I ever teach something that's not founded in this, throw it out. Amen. If it's not founded in this, you throw it out. Right. This is the gatekeeper of our Christianity. Experiences that exist out of this, throw them out. That's right. Come on. What this word says goes. All right, turn. Another passage, John. Chapter 9. John chapter 9. Verse 1, right at the beginning. And I'm going to tell you right now, what you're about to read is still being taught in church circles today. Here we go. As he passed by, this is Jesus, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples said to him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, it was not this man who sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with his saliva. That's not the part that's being taught these days. Then he anointed, meaning touched, this man. He touched him. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, just a touch from Jesus changes everything. Changes everything. I don't know why he spit on the ground. I don't know why he made mud. I kind of get the concept, it's like, why not? When somebody's spit can change the life of somebody, that's pretty amazing. I want to tell you something. I read in my study for this talk today, I read something and I had to check it. I'm like, could this be? And all my Bible scholars, you're going to be my fact checkers on this, and I want you to find, if you can find it. I couldn't find it. But one of the things that was said is that the healing of blindness was never, there's not an account of healing of blindness in the entire Old Testament. And I was like, really? And I started looking for it. I couldn't find it. If you find one, show me, because I don't want to be in error. Some of you scholars are like, I'm going right now. Forget what pastor's going to say for the next 10 minutes. I'm going right now. But it was talked about as being a sign of the Messiah, that he would do this. And I'll read to you. Isaiah 42:6 says, "And I am the Lord, I have called you in righteousness. I will take you by the hand and keep you. I will give you as a covenant to my people, the light of the nations. Open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoner from the dungeon, from the prison those who are set in darkness." Now, Jesus references this as well. In Luke 4, he says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has set me to proclaim liberty to the captives and the receiving of sight to the blind." This is a very distinct thing because, you can free a captive. Doesn't make you the Messiah. You can preach good news. Doesn't make you the Messiah. But this concept of healing the blind is actually a marker that says, I'm the one you've been waiting for. And they wanted to kill him for it. I thought that was very interesting. Now, seriously, if you find one, I want to know. I want to text this week. Because I'm not saying that I did this amazingly exhaustive search. I tried to find it and I couldn't. But I thought it was very interesting. In Luke 7, he says, "And he answered them, 'Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them.'" He said that and John's like, okay. What about that makes John go, okay. Well, these are all markers of what the Messiah would be. All right? So, if we go back to this story here in John 9. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with his saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. And came back seeing. Folks, we got to be careful. We love to be the ones to prescribe why people are sick, why people are the way they are. Jesus said, listen, hold on, hold the phone. Sin is everywhere. Through Adam, sin was brought into the world. And by the second Adam, sin will be removed. But we rub up against sin all the time. And sin in the world is what causes illness, what causes sickness. not necessarily somebody's individual sin. Now, let's caveat that by saying there's certain things that you do or don't do that will make you sick. I mean, if you're on a steady diet of Twinkies, you're probably going to get a tummy ache and be 900 pounds. It's not healthy for your heart. It's not healthy for, I mean, if you're a chain smoker, you're probably going to have a problem with that. There's things we can do to improve our health. Right, Alberta? All right. Go see Alberta's YouTube channel. What's it called again? Berta J's in the kitchen. I don't eat the same type of food as Alberta, but I can watch her show, and it's just like calming. I love your show. I love your show. It's calming. She got such a way about her. But we can do things to make our bodies well, and if we don't do things, we're going to probably get sick or probably not do so well. If we don't exercise, we don't do these. I think those are important things that we should do, and I'm not the greatest example of those things, but they can improve our health. But there's one sure thing that will happen to every single human, should the Lord tarry, is we are all going to waste away in the physical. In the physical. I heard something that we are spiritual beings experiencing a human, going through a human experience. I like that. We're all spiritual beings going through a human experience. You're much more than flesh and blood. Jesus came to this earth, died on the cross, rose again from the grave, so that you and I will eternally be with Jesus. He loves you. He cares for you. He wants the best for you. And He's the same God yesterday, today, and forever. That hasn't changed since the first century. So when we go, when this sinful world brushes up against us, we go to our Father, we press in, and we ask Him to miraculously change the natural. What happens if He doesn't do it right away? Give up. Because He doesn't really care about you. But that's honestly, I'm being facetious here, but that's what we do. Well, I guess He doesn't really care about me as much as I thought. I think this particular story is interesting because the man had to go do something, and when he received his sight, Jesus was nowhere around. Isn't that interesting? Like, why? Other times He healed somebody and the guy opened his eyes and he's like, okay, I see things that look like trees. How does He know what a tree looks like? Maybe He wasn't always blind. Things look like trees walking around. And then then he gets his whole sight. Why? What is this progression stuff? Other times Jesus said, you're healed. Boom. I can walk. I can see. My hand's healed. All this stuff is immediate, instantaneous. I want to seek the healer more than the healing. I want to press in and touch Jesus because He's Jesus, not just because He can do something for me. Amen. I want to know God and be more and more like Him every day. And I want to trust Him that He's got this thing taken care of. But what does He ask us to do? He asks us to pray. He asks us to intercede on behalf of people. So we do that. And we're going to do that this morning. You're not sick. You're not going through a difficulty because God hates you. Or because you did something so wrong that you can't, that God is judging you. That's what this passage tells us. You're sick, or you're going through a situation because we live in a sinful world. Maybe you've made some choices that weren't the best, that have gotten you where you are right now. Guess what? He can take care of that too. We live in a world that is in direct opposition to the things of God. But greater is he that is in me than he that is in this world. The Bible says he came to seek and save the lost. He came to heal and restore.